when it comes to the NFC and the best team within it. I'll give you the floor on this one, Howie. What do you got for me here?
You know, I like New Orleans, and Green Bay. I think it's a better matchup for them than it would be for a team like Tampa Bay, who's so physical. And you know, we saw what happened earlier in the year, and it was almost kind of a carbon copy of, you know, the two trips out to San Francisco, and you know, there was another game mixed in there against a physical team where they came up short. Aaron is playing at such a high level. You know, I like the head coach, and it's that whole group of young coaches who were on the Washington staff under Mike Shanahan, and you know, it's not the same offense, but it certainly has elements in each one of their offenses that look very similar. You know, the pre-snap motion, the jet sweeps, the play action pass, all that. My question with New Orleans is, you know, Taysom Hill, you know, who you love as a football player, big, physical, athletic. You know, we had heard, you know, a year ago that Taysom Hill, when Drew moved on, was going to be the guy. And then obviously they make the signing in the off season, you know, and with Jameis, and you know, the assumption was, well, that's the natural kind of succession, and you know, maybe the best thing for Jameis is spend time with Sean Payton and Drew Brees, and you know, the maturity level goes up and the acumen goes up and all that. And we had heard a year ago that it was going to be Taysom Hill, and I said, there's no way. I mean, how could that be possible? He's still yet to throw a touchdown pass.
That's true. It's true.
But, you know, I think the real test comes, Rich, when, you know, you get down early in a game and you've got to climb back into it, and you can't do it with, you know, the kind of offense they're running now. But I think Sean has looked at these other, and Sean is so creative, and, you know, just watching what they do offensively, it's so fascinating to watch. I think he's been looking at these other offenses and saying, wait a second, I've been doing this for 15 years with a stationary quarterback, and, you know, and it was that team that kind of brought on the value of the interior three in the offensive line because of Drew's height. And I think other teams have kind of copied that formula to a certain extent, but I think he's looked at other teams and said, you know, I see what San Francisco's doing, I see what Green Bay's doing, I see what these other teams that are, you know, running all these kind of wild formations and pre-snap motions and jet sweeps and all that, and let's see what I can do.
Well, I mean, you know, and I think, though, Howie, the real challenge might come this week, because the real challenge is facing a team that's already seen him before, and Atlanta has, and I know Atlanta's the southpaw that nobody wants to fight. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
I'm telling you, it's like, you know, if you could explain Atlanta to me, it's mind-boggling. You know, they're a team that can just, as we saw last week, unfortunately, light you up, and then they can lay an egg. And, you know, New Orleans sacked him, 8 times? And, you know, I think that defensive front, you know, looks at that on the calendar and says, that's a 3-sacker for me.
I know, and that's why the Saints might be, you know, Super Bowl worthy, is the way the defense is playing. But, you know, it's one of those, I don't know, and I know that the defense had its day against Atlanta 2 weeks ago, as you just mentioned, how long. But
Rich, that's been coming with their defense. Their defense is, you know, I think they had communication issues. I think in some ways they started slow, particularly on the back end and somewhat up front, but they got players back. And, you know, we forget that defense was pretty good coming down the stretch last year. And I think they've kind of stepped it back up. And, you know, but once again, the question becomes, what happens when you're down in a big game. You know, maybe not this week, but maybe down the road, and maybe it's in the, you know, divisional round and hopefully for them, the NFC Championship game, where you're down and Taysom needs to, and maybe you get Drew back.
Yep.
That's the question. I mean, I didn't know you had that many ribs.
That's Howie Long.
I mean, my God, and the funny thing was, and you know, as a player, players know this.
Yes, that's great.
I saw his face and his body language when he got up, and I know that feeling. That feeling is, if you're great, you don't know how to tap out. You can't look to the sideline. That's just not what you do. And that was the realization in his face and his body language that I'm really, 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 really hurt. I mean, and how hurt he was, we didn't know. And how tough is Drew Brees?
No doubt.
Oh, my gosh. You know, that's not – you don't necessarily think Drew Brees, tough, you know, that's – you know, we kind of give that title to other quarterbacks. But I got to tell you, he moved way up on the list. He made a quantum leap up my list.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.